Good afternoon and welcome to the Diversity and Inclusion Panelist Session on Sports Great Responsibility. I'm Eric Harper, Senior Associate Athletic Director for Development, and we'll be working with Dr. Parry on today's panel. Today on the panel is our fabulous Athletic Director, Desiree Reed-Francois, completed her 4th year and recently signed an extension, which is great for the Rebels. And then Coach Arroyo, 2nd-year head coach with the Rebel football program, just completed the first full spring ball practice. So looking for great things from Coach Arroyo. Season opens September 2 at Allegiant Stadium versus Eastern Washington. Next is Jenny Ruiz-Williams, recently completed her 1st year as the head coach for UNLV women's soccer. Exceptionally talented 1st-year head coach and former Rebel great women's soccer player. And then the longest tenured on the call, Yvonne Wade, our women's head track and field coach, who has multiple Mountain West Coach of the Year awards and a Hall of Famer at Colorado, a member of the Japanese national team for 9 years and a 2-time Olympian in 1996 and 2000 as a hurdler for her birth country in Japan. And with our student athletes, it's Bailey Thomas, recently graduated with her master's in accounting, completed her eligibility as a member of the women's basketball team, and 2-time Defensive Player of the Year in the Mountain West. Aaron Lewis, member of the Rebel football team, and recently graduated with his bachelor's degree, and will be coming back to play another season for the Rebels. And Camila Kenichi, member of the women's swim team, and recently completed her junior year and is a member of the Peruvian national team in 2016. Leading our panel today will be Dr. Tyler Parry, Assistant Professor for African American Studies and African Diaspora. And Dr. Parry, take it away.
Thank you so much, Eric. My deepest appreciations for being invited to do this with you all. I'm also an alumni of the institution, born and raised in Las Vegas, and went through the public school system here at CCSD. And if you would have told 7th grade me sitting in Brindley Middle School that this is what I would be doing with my life, I probably just would have ignored you and thought you were just pretending with me. But I'm deeply appreciative for the opportunity to do this with everyone. I'm so glad to see the direction that UNLV is going in, and as well as it includes its athletics department. And so my job today is just to moderate a discussion with all of you as people who are in the field, who are grappling with these issues and trying to figure out how sports and athletics in general can help push these narratives forward in society to create a better world for all of us. And so my first question is for the panel broadly. Coach Wade has generously offered to go first, and then others can follow afterwards. And it's simply, what does diversity and inclusion mean to you?
Well, one, thank you for allowing me to be on this beautiful panel. I'm so blessed to be a member of this fascinating staff, this diverse staff. So again, thank you. But diversity and inclusion. So diversity, simply put, is the presence of difference. That's easy, right? Race, gender, religion. Inclusion, however, is where it goes a little deeper. And I think inclusion means when you allow those differences to have a voice and a seat at that table, and making sure that when they have that voice, they feel supported, that they can come to the table as their authentic self, and feel that their presence and their voice has value to the growth of the organization or the team or the department. So I think that's what diversity and inclusion means to me.
Thank you. Does anyone else like to weigh in?
I could say something about it. I think diversity and inclusion, they're both very important to me. And the reason being is because inclusion, like Coach Yvonne said, is it should be a safe space where people could be accepted, and there shouldn't be any type of biases or anything of that sort. So I think that is very important, to be able to include everybody's ethnicities, religion, age, anything really.
I'll follow up just because there's Aaron there, and I've had the privilege to be around, in I think the landscape today with 150 of these college football players, and I think I've been humbled by learning about their conversations more than anything, as opposed to my kind of what I think or what I think I know about it. I think, hearing from those guys, I think the diversity thing, I think, is understanding that it's not just a color deal. It's ages, it's genders, it's physical abilities, it's maturity, it's orientation, it's education, it's occupation, it's political views. I mean, all these things came into play for us this last year. And I think it really opened a lot of our eyes that these conversations are sometimes, swept aside or minimized in detail. And I think that diversity thing played a big piece of it. And then in the inclusion piece for us, I think we came away from it as a team. I can't speak for everybody else, but I think the word that came out of that for us was acceptance. Accepting who and whatever's differences, building a relationship between those people, regardless of whatever it may be, and accommodating, cultivating an environment that could really let people and young men and women of all shapes, sizes, and demographics really thrive. And I think those things were really apparent in this past year for us. And I was happy to be part of it. I was humbled to be part of it with my group.
I would just add, and this is not my original quote, it was actually our director of sports performance who serves on our inclusion committee. And she talked about diversity is having a seat at the table, inclusion is having a voice, and then belonging is having that voice heard. And I just thought that's so simple, but just so right on point. We all want to belong to something. We might as well belong to something special. And from the seat that I sit in, I don't want everybody to be just like me. I need to listen and to learn and hear from Bailey Thomas. I want Aaron Lewis and Camila to see people like them leading this department. And so, we'll probably get into strategies a little bit later, but that's just really important. Our campus is one of the most diverse in the entire country, and our athletic department should be as well. So that sense of belonging is where you get the magic.
Yeah, excellent points all around. And I particularly like these points about understanding that we all come from different environments too, and that if we're going to formulate an environment which everyone feels comfortable, diversity, inclusion, and belonging is a part of that. So thank you very much for adding that. And so my next few questions are more targeted toward people who hold specific positions. And so this next one is specifically designed for the coaches. And so the question is, how has your respective sport embraced diversity and inclusion? I'll go ahead and ask if Jenny Ruiz-Williams wants to go ahead.
I think with soccer in general is such a global sport, and it transcends culture, language. You think of the World Cup, and the voice is a ball, right, in your feet. And even within our soccer culture, we have a lot of this word: Newcastle United, Manchester United, Leeds United. So I'm a Leeds United fan, and I am like this at the TV in Las Vegas while someone in Ireland is doing this, and someone in Mexico, and someone in, wherever. And at the same moment in the stadium, you've got two people embracing each other and holding each other over a goal, So that's a sport in general, right? It's so uniting. When we think of, and I bet Coach Arroyo can attest to this, when we talk about defense, it's a well-oiled machine with different diverse human beings functioning as one, right? And that is a well-oiled defensive unit. So that in itself, within the sport of soccer, the togetherness, the belonging is so present.
Yeah, I'll go next. And I love Coach Williams's energy. I want to go play for her every day she speaks. I had the pleasure of being a track athlete at 2 Olympic Games and being in a place where so many people from different backgrounds and cultures and sports just all come together and collaborate and just want to compete, just be the best version of themselves, has allowed me to see this perspective of, diversity and inclusion in a big stadium, no pun intended, way. And so when I coach, a group of young women who come from very diverse backgrounds, it's important for me, especially as a female coach, especially as a woman of color coach, to, see everybody and accept everybody's perspectives, where they come from, make sure that they feel included, because we're trying to win. We're all trying to have a goal. And, we, with the leadership of Desiree, we have a mission, and that mission is to do this together. And so everybody needs a voice, a seat at the table, and feel valued towards driving that goal. It's really important.
I think it's probably fair. It's in my opinion, it's important. I think in our sport, honestly, it gets glossed over. I think unfortunately in football, it's a little bit different than Jenny's, and in regards, and I'm a huge soccer fan, so I think she hit it right on the head. That's a global deal. NFL football and college football is not. Football with 2 O's versus football with a U's is different. And I think that Headway and guys that I've grown up around, the Tony Dungy's of the world, the Herm Edwards of the world, that I've been around at one level or the other, whether it be a colleague or whether it be an alumni at the same university. I think that we're continuing to try to make more of a precedence in this. And I think that there's, examples like what Desiree's doing and I'll brag on her a little bit. She's spearheading a program right now that I'm part of as a Latino head coach, and with African Americans in our world. I think there's 15 or 13 head coaches and ADs on this panel. That's a national coalition of minority football coaches. And I think the thing that I found most interesting about it, and I don't know if I've told Desiree this, I think the thing is it's really focused. It's really aligned on making advocates for minority coaches. It's not just a big umbrella of, hey, let's do interviews this way. Let's go through a Rooney Rule. Let's make 10 sheets of paper look like we're doing something. It's direct. My direct conversation with one AD, someone else's direct conversation with someone else, and you're conversating, at a macro level about this thing. And it's not something that's a forum, or it's not something that's really superficial. I think those movements right now are really, really important. And I'm bragging her because she's behind the whole thing. And I think as a leader for us, that's a big deal. I think it's a big deal for UNLV. I think it's a big deal for Las Vegas. I think it's a big deal for the NCAA. And it's worth recognizing when you do want to make a movement that it's not always convenient. And I think we can continue to press the envelope.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate all these comments collectively, because I think that the impression within society among many is that there's just this inherent diversity and inclusion within sports, that it just kind of happens organically. But it wasn't long ago in US history where diversity and inclusion had to be something that was pushed legislatively. And we are still facing the effects of that even to this day in 2021. So I appreciate all the coaches commenting upon the strategies undertaken to ensure that those two principles are being included within their respective sports. So now the student athletes. In what ways do diverse experiences, people, and ideas enrich our university and athletics department? Yes, Camila.
I believe everything is a lesson. And so, the athletics benefits from their own diverse group of students through their experience, their worldviews. So we can learn from every place we visit. We can learn from every person we meet. And I've heard some ideas that diversity actually might damage the team, since it can create barriers between people, since people think that maybe they might be too different with each other to engage. But I don't think that's the case. I think that this only happens when we come to these situations with a closed mindset. And so if we choose to learn, and if we come with an open mind, we can learn so much from each other. And so diversity and inclusion only work when the minds around them are also open and eager to learn. And I feel like UNLV and athletics being so diverse, we also get this lesson that we get taught to be more welcoming and more empathetic to people from all backgrounds, which overall makes us more understanding and just better human beings. For example, one of my teammates is Venezuelan, and even though I'm Peruvian and our culture might be very similar, I've learned so much from him, and I've done like some introspection, and I've learned so much from my own culture, my own costumes, like compared to his. And yeah, I think meeting people around the world expands your inner world, but only if we let it.
Yeah, I think also Desiree touched on it. The athletic department is very diverse. I think any student athlete can find somebody to relate to. And it's super inspiring because there's people of color in power, there's women in power, there's mothers in position of powers. And I want to be a CEO one day, and I also want to be a mom one day. And to see the athletic department, it really motivates me. And they paved the pathway for me because they showed me if they can do it, then I also can do it too.
To go off of that, I feel that it's a good way to gain knowledge and understanding. Talking with people that don't come from the same background as you. This past year, we had a lot of things to talk about, whether it's social injustice or COVID or a number of things. So from my personal experiences, being in the locker room and just talking with other football teammates, and a certain situation comes up, whether it be COVID, for example, I was able to get like a better understanding on that subject from somebody else that had different experiences than me. And it kind of like made me open up my mind more to the conversation itself. So I feel like by the school being so diverse, you're able to gain a lot of knowledge and understanding.
I mean, these are great comments from the student athletes because it brings to mind this notion of authenticity needs to be present whenever diversity and inclusion programs are instituted, because it might be somewhat easy to recruit people from underrepresented backgrounds, but what does your athletics department look like? Who is in charge? Who's leading it? And so a lot of people have some suspicions of, is this kind of a hollow method forward? But from what I'm hearing is that everyone feels like UNLV is doing the work to make sure there's an authentic expression of diversity and inclusion within the athletics department from top and all throughout. So thank you so much for those thoughts. Now, the next question is specific for Desiree. As the leader for UNLV athletics, how have you embraced diversity and inclusion as its leader?
Sure. I'm very proud. I'm going to start with the results and then I'll go to the strategies. And then I want to finish with the why. Actually, I'm going to start with the why. Quite frankly, what Bailey Thomas said just warms my heart, because that's what we all strive for. I want Bailey so much to see people like Yvonne and Jenny and Marcus and all of the folks that are leading, because I want her to know that there is this incredible future out there. And I want her to see people like her, quite frankly, because I believe in the importance of context. I didn't quite understand that until I read Sonia Sotomayor's book. And several of you have heard me talk about this, but it was important to me. Justice Sotomayor talked about the importance of context and how we have to paint the picture of the future. And so having a very diverse staff is critically important to us. UNLV is one of the most diverse in the entire country. Our athletic department, our first 50 hires, 70% were women or people of color, 63% were former student athletes. Our head coaches group, is the most diverse in the entire conference, top 5 in the country. Now, we don't hire people based upon their ethnicity, their orientation, their race, their religion. We hire, or their gender. We hire the absolute best person. But one thing now that I'm starting year 5 that I know is that blue chip people want to be around other blue chip people. And it's this wonderful way of, you hire one coach and then that coach can go and help you hire the next great coach and hire the next great coach. When we were hiring Coach Ruiz-Williams, I would ask some of my other coaches to talk to her about what is it like to work at UNLV. And we're recruiting great people. And so we wanted to recruit her. Now it's this wonderful cycle that it starts and we get this incredible momentum. And then people who do come from diverse backgrounds, they can look at UNLV and they can see that we don't just talk the talk, we walk the walk. And that's part of what makes us so incredibly special. It's part of our momentum. And it's great recruiting because it's real and it's authentic. So I I always get a little frustrated when I hear people talk about, oh, well, I can't find any quality women candidates out there, or I can't find any quality Latinx candidates out there, or any Black candidates, or any Asian candidates. And I just say, you know what, then you're not looking hard enough, because there are some incredible people that just need an opportunity. And that's what UNLV is about. We're about opportunity. Now we're going to push really hard, and we're going to drive for excellence all the time. I hire very smart, selfless, hardworking people, but most of us have a little bit of a chip on our shoulder. And we may have been overlooked for whatever reason. But you know what? We're going to do it with humility, but we're going to achieve that mission, but we're going to do it with a spirit of togetherness and with humility.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I mean, that's a soundbite I think we should just throw out to the universe. So those were great thoughts. Thank you so much for sharing them with us. And so we have about 15 or so minutes left before we have to officially wrap up. And I know that there might be some audience questions as well. So I'm going to go to the last question, which is an invitation for everyone to speak. And I would invite you to do so because I think that it's important to get this thought out. If you had 1 minute to talk about diversity and inclusion, what would you feel like is the most important message to deliver?
I can start it off.
Let's go. All right.
My message would be that diversity is opportunity. It's an opportunity to learn about different perspectives, opportunity to learn about different backgrounds, see something you've never seen before, hear something you've never seen before. I think it's awesome to be different. It's amazing. And I think everyone should embrace that.
I'll just say, you know, being a part of this department has really opened my eyes to the value of, you know, perspective of the different cultures, the different, you know, people that we have here on this institution, not only just in athletics, but on campus in general. In order to be the best version of ourselves, you know, we can't think the same. We can't all come from the same perspective. We can't all look the same. You know, the only way for growth is to embrace different values, different beliefs, listen, talk to each other, communicate, and learn. And, you know, I think sky's the limit. Once we get into the same room and have open, honest, authentic discussions, we'll definitely reach for the stars.
I agree. I feel that's very important to acknowledge the differences that come with diversity, but ultimately embrace them and look at things from different perspectives. I feel like once you do that, you're ultimately growing and you're learning new things. So I think that is really good to have diversity.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the same. I mean, I think the thing I'd chime in with is I challenge kind of the leaders to kind of look at the success of, or think back to being part of companies or teams or groups that weren't diversified. I think it becomes very static. I think it becomes easier. I think it becomes mundane. And honestly, I think it becomes a lot of status quo. And I think it's pretty average. I think when you look at businesses or groups that force the issue and force diversity and force kind of that competition or stretching themselves, I think you see a lot healthier gains. I think you see more. I think they outwork it. I mean, there's plenty of articles that support businesses that use that as a model. I mean, I don't know if it goes into football, but I know that when we believe that in our world we live in, that if we change that behavior, if our past behaviors our current behaviors got to outweigh our past outcomes. And I think that really stretches us here. And I know that. I think working on diverse teams and people from all walks of life, when you're on a team with 150 people from all places around, you produce better outcomes. I mean, you work harder to get things done. And most of the time that harder work is a predicate to a higher success. It just is. It's not there's no secret to that. I think sometimes you just have a hard time if you don't correlate the two, you can miss that piece. So that's kind of what I'd say in regards to maybe looking at something in regards to success, maybe at home or in a business or anything else, as opposed to just two people. I mean, look at the workflow. look at the success of a business or a group.
I see diversity as life itself. Life is full of different people, is messy. People from different backgrounds will always be there. And so like, if you only choose to see a certain group, that's all you ever see. And so I would say open your minds to diversity and you'll see how your life is filled with incredible experiences. And regarding inclusion, I feel like it's only there because it's now something that we have to push and strive for. We have to create a platform for different people to be able to be heard and their experiences to be noticed. And so looking forward, I believe it's like nice to dream, about a world that in which like the color of our skin or the language we speak is, there are not barriers between us and our dreams.
And I'd like to add one more thing. I think, diversity is important. UNLV and UNLV Athletics have done an amazing job creating a diverse pool of people and collaborating on what we're doing here. But the inclusion piece, that's where the meat of everything is. If you don't have both together, you have a pretty gift package with pretty wrapping paper and nothing inside. The substance inside that gift is what the inclusion is. Having all these people from different backgrounds having that voice, and then the gift is amazing. You open that gift and what comes out of that can be so great. And I think we've done a great, amazing job here at UNLV and in particular the department. And Desiree, we love you for this, the amazing work you've done in that regard. But the two together, it's going to be wonderful.
Quite frankly, it's not only the right thing to do, it's also good business. I think there's been a McKinsey study that said that companies that have diverse management teams, and it may not be McKinsey, I'm going to Google it really quickly, are 19% more profitable. So it's good business sense. And if you just think about it, so I'm a 49-year-old, half Mexican, half English lawyer from the San Francisco Bay Area. I know how I think. I don't want someone who's going to think like me. I want someone who is going to think like Aaron Lewis and Eric Harper and Jenny Ruiz-Williams. I want to know, there's a reason why we're all born a little different. And so we have to listen to one another. And then when you have that, that's when you get the beauty. So it makes good business sense. It's just the right thing. And quite frankly, it's the foundation, the essence of what we do for a living. Athletics is that opportunity to really galvanize communities. When Jenny Ruiz-Williams, when she talked about rooting for Leeds United, and she was going like this, we're always going to be thinking, whenever I see Leeds United, I'm going to think about Jenny and like going like this, and the person in Scotland going like this, because athletics galvanizes. But the beautiful thing about athletics too, is that and what I love about athletics is that it's a meritocracy. If you can play, if you can run, if you can shoot a basketball and play incredible defense, then you're going to play. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter who your parents are. If you can play, you can play. And that's what's beautiful. And that's why athletics can be the model for why diversity works.
Great. So what I'm hearing, I've been taking a few notes, and there's a lot of reason to celebrate what UNLV has done. And so my next question kind of redirects it a little bit. For all of you who have participated in one sport, specifically, you have experiences on different teams throughout your lives, I assume, in different institutions. And the one thing I'm wondering is that we still hear about some of the toxic habits within sporting events and other things around the country. And my question for all of you, and anyone can feel free to chime in, is what still needs to be done in some institutions to promote true diversity and inclusion? Because apparently it's worked here very well at UNLV under good leadership. But if there was a piece of advice you would give to maybe your individual sports or different institutions or anything like that, what would you say? I mean, what could be done and what still needs to be done within the athletics world?
Yeah, I'm going to start that one if you don't mind,
Sure.
because I've thought about this and I've talked with colleagues about it. quite frankly, people need to stop making excuses. Stop saying that they cannot find qualified people of color, qualified women. They just stop saying that, because there is incredible talent out there. You just have to dig a little deeper, and you have to listen, and you have to tap into your support networks. You have to take some chances. And what I mean by that is you have to call, if I'm looking for a track coach, you know what, call Yvonne Wade. She's got a wonderful connection of resources. And then Yvonne has got to then, which I know that she does, she's got to be an advocate. Because it's one thing, we all mentor people coming up, but it's not enough just to be a mentor and tell people how to interview or be a sounding board for when you want to talk about career choices, et cetera. We've all got to take that next step and understand that it's our responsibility and be that advocate. And quite frankly, when there are positions posted that I know candidates, I just pick up the phone and call athletic directors, even if I don't know them that well, but I want to keep advocating for women and people of color. I am passionate that I want it to be fair. I want to make sure that people have wonderful opportunities. People have done that for me. And so I think that's I know that's my responsibility.
Yeah, I would definitely 100% agree with what Desiree says. You know, once you become someone in leadership role, like Desiree has, you reach down and you pull up the next, you reach down and find that talent, and you let them know and see the opportunities that are available for them, and know that and confirm that they're ready for it. I think a lot of times we fear, if we're going to be accepted, if we're going to fit in, if we're going to, meet all the criteria. And so we are afraid to jump into those roles. But it's somebody like Desiree that says, yes, you can, and you are capable, you can do it. That's what makes the difference. I had the pleasure of being on the search committee when she was hired, and yet she was the first Hispanic, female AD to lead a BCS school, but we didn't hire her because of that. She was the best candidate for the job. The other stuff was just icing on the cake, So now our athletes can see somebody that looks like her, the mirror reflection of themselves in a leadership role, and that's priceless. So that's why, I think reaching down and helping the next person is what we do.
Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you for hiring me. But in all seriousness, you said something that triggered something for me. I also think as candidates and as women, as people of color, it's also take a leap of faith. I know that when I was coming up, I would see a job description and it would have maybe 15 categories or 15 requirements. And if I didn't have all 15, I didn't always take that leap of faith. And I would kind of almost talk myself out of it and say, no, I'm not quite ready. So please don't do that. Take those leaps of faith. And this is especially, I'm going to speak directly to my female colleagues and friends. Sometimes women, we do this even more than men do. We feel we have to have all the boxes checked, but get outside your comfort zone, because that's where the gold is.
Really quickly, I have an announcement to make. So I've been informed that the two winners who will receive the UNLV Nike prize pack are Teresa Billiot and Benita Wolf, and the UNLV Sports Marketing will reach out to claim your prize. So just keep that in mind. Congratulations to those who joined. And so for the panelists, we have a few minutes, about 5 minutes, to do kind of a wrap-up question. And I think it goes along with the last thing I asked, and I appreciated the answers here. I mean, if you have, and this can go for the student athletes or coaches or anybody, if you have a teammate or a student athlete who comes to you and says, I don't feel like I can be my authentic self within this space, what is a response that you would give that student, or what type of advice or protocol exists in order to facilitate that comfort that the student athlete might need or the teammate might need?
I think I'll probably try to talk to him first, ask him why does he feel like that, and if he felt comfortable enough to share that with me. But if not, I have confidence in my coaching staff, so I'll try to, walk with him to my coaching staff and, try to get to the bottom of it, because I wouldn't want him to feel like that.
To follow up, ask them, how can I make you feel like you belong? How can I make you feel welcome? Like, what do you need to feel this way? And maybe after them explaining me, maybe I could like point them out, like, hey, maybe you haven't realized, but people are actually there for you. It's just like, here things are maybe done differently does not mean that we do not care like for you. We care a lot. And so show support, talk to teammates. I think communication is key in this scenario. And so, yeah.
I think one thing that pops up for me when I think about that, just the way I'm wired, is number one, what Aaron said, you got to listen first, have big ears. We got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. The other thing is, I think we need to be really introspective of ourselves too, of us as leaders. But number 2 is how we set up the culture. And then when these things pop up, how are they popping up? Like in a timeline? Are we checking on guys regularly enough to where we got to feel that they're going to come forward? Or are we always reacting? Are we proactive enough? I don't think environments with the young men and women we have in today's world are proactive enough. And I think that's probably why we do so much culture-wide with mindset and visits and mixing our groups up and having conversations that are tough and getting right to the nitty-gritty, because I'm so scared of being reactive and having young men walk through the door and go, hey, I've had an issue for 6 months. Well, why haven't we known this? And that would never be the response. But that's what triggers in me, is like, wow, we've not been checking on this young man. And today, with the mental health and things that this generation is going through, to think that we're just going to be old school and be like, oh, they're just different, that's ridiculous. And I think that you have to be really, really proactive in finding ways to facilitate those conversations, really listen well, really be empathetic and sympathetic. Don't pretend you know, and really have your ear to the pavement. And I think if you do the hard work that way, I think your culture can be so much easier to navigate. And I just think that happens a lot. I see that a lot, and it just one of those things that triggers. It goes far beyond when he crosses the threshold of the door and comes and sits in front of me. It started way back then, and why haven't we been attuned to it? And those, sometimes they do pop up. I get it, but for the most part, I think, and I'll point the thumb at myself where I pointed out anywhere, is the fact that you have to have conversations regularly and on time and communicate. And I think that if you don't do that, you run the risk of having that. That's how I feel about it.
I agree 100%. You cannot pump the brakes on making the individuals feel valued and wanted. I couldn't agree. And then I'm hearing a lot about just surrounding conversation. We did a lot of that here, and some of just within the head coaches, I left the conversation, I crying, like hearing and never felt so bonded to the other head coaches after conversations coupled with action, which is what we're doing here.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best parts about UNLV, what Coach Arroyo said. They're so proactive. Speaking from the women's basketball perspective, we would spend 5 to 10 minutes before practice every day and just talk about what's going on in the world, especially during elections or Black Lives Matter protests. Our coach would take the time to ask us, how do we feel about this? Is this causing you any stress? And then they give you the resources of who you can talk to just in case you don't feel comfortable talking in front of the team. And I think even though it took some practice time away, I think that part was really, really important for them to check on our mental health first before we started.
Yeah, Desiree, go ahead.
No, I didn't have anything. I was just putting my hands together because I love what Bailey was saying. So no, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. We actually, we are about at the end, and we ended on time. So it's also an efficiency at UNLV athletics department. So I wanted to thank everybody for your comments and your answers to the questions we've provided today. I'm very proud to work at this institution and to have grown up cheering for UNLV. Back in my day, we didn't have pro sports teams in Las Vegas, so UNLV Rebels were it for me. And so I'm really happy to see the direction that the athletics department is going in, and the commitment to diversity, inclusion, and belonging that is on display here and on display in general institutionally. So thank you again to Eric Harper for inviting me. I've enjoyed getting to know all of the head coaches and student athletes that I've both met in this capacity as well as teaching them in my classes. So this is a fantastic experience for me. I'm looking forward to many more, even if I'm not directly involved. I certainly want to participate in future discussions. And so with that said, I think Eric maybe deserves the last word because he's coordinating a lot of these things and he reached out to me. So I'll hand it over to him before we sign off.
Thank you so much, Dr. Parry. It's been a true pleasure to get to know you and have conversation, and look forward to more and more conversation and you lending your time to our department with your expertise and your ability to make everyone feel warm and welcome and inviting to answer questions that are tough. And just so excited about the relationship we have with you as a department, and our leadership in Desiree and all of our coaches and student athletes and what they do for UNLV athletics. And as a executive staff member on Desiree's team, I'm just so excited and so blessed to be able to work here at UNLV and help and try and just make this a better department, and one that no one ever wants to leave, and everybody's trying to gravitate to be a part of this department, and just excited. And thank you all for listening in. We really appreciate it, and there's more Rebel Caravans to go for the rest of the month, and we just want to do our part as a department to make everyone feel welcome, included, and belonging as a department. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful summer. And go Rebels, and we'll see you September 2nd, 2021, when Coach Arroyo takes on Eastern Washington at Allegiant Stadium.